Hello, friend, and welcome to Borgcast Original Series 1.21.
Hello.
It's Peter and Marie, and we have a whole shed load of previously on. Oh, yes. Quite a bit of discussion in our old Facebook group. Do feel free to join that if you want to. So Drew and Tracy last time pointed out that that the Air Force personnel seem to be wearing purple uniforms, and Llama God had the same experience. And I think they're both watching the remastered editions, so they've mucked the colours up.
Oh, because they're not actually purple.
They're not purple, they're blue. But it's a common issue with Star Trek reissues, particularly, that they, for some reason they muck the colours up, and then they have to bring a new version out where they've got the colours right again. So the number of times they've brought out the films, there's yet another version of the motion picture coming out later this year. It's just madness. Like, I'm not buying another one. Mad.
I would buy another 6 if it had the proper ending.
Yes, that's coming out, so that's worth getting. I think the motion picture one might be the first time the director's cut has come out in high def, because the previous director's cut was, for some reason, they did that in low def, because duh. But yeah, the rest of the movies I'm buying again. I've already got Rafa Khan in high def. I don't need that again. So
no. Whereas the previous 6 had the wrong ending.
Yes, the previous 6 also missed the Scooby-Doo bit as well, which we always enjoy.
Yes, no. It needs to be the proper 6.
We also heard from Jeffrey Mark Hyman, who said the last episode we covered, Tomorrow is Yesterday, perhaps the best cold open of the original series. Although less said about his comment about Woolly Willies, the better, I think. Yes.
Okay.
I didn't see that then.
No.
Okay, you remember we were talking about Magna Doodles?
Yes.
Well, the United States had Woolly Willies.
That's a willy warmer, isn't it?
Apparently not, but anyway. Martin Thompson had this to say. The opening was better than if we'd seen things from the Enterprise crew's point of view. If we were done these days, I think we would have seen a large hero shot of a looming majestic Enterprise, but this still works well.
Yeah.
And Andy on Kubrick's faking the moon landings.
Yeah. I did see this.
Yes, he said he did point out that he did filmed it actually on the moon, because that was Kubrick. Although having said that, he wasn't so purist as to actually film Full Metal Jacket in Vietnam, and instead did it in Docklands quite blatantly, but there you go. And Lee had this to say. I watched this a few weeks back. Odd to think this is the origin of the Voyage Home's slingshot sun time travel. It's hilarious, though, how utterly off the rails every plan becomes as Kirk and co. try to clean up the temporal mess, and then by the end just go, oh, let's beam Pilot Boy back as we whiz back in time, and you won't remember anything. If that's not the writers throwing their hands up in the air and saying fuck it and pulling what I'd later call the Voyager Mumbo Jumbo resolution button, usually involving Harry Kim shouting nonsense over the red alert noise and simply pressing a button, then I don't know what it is. Well, at least we don't get the technobabble in original series.
Yeah.
I mean, it's equally nonsense, but it's not tried to cover up with a load of scientific mumbo-jumbo that doesn't actually make any sense.
No, most of that was written by Naren Shankar.
Indeed. But tonight we are covering the Return of the Archons.
Captain's log, stardate 3192.1. Trying to find some trace of the starship Archon that disappeared 100 years ago. A search party has been sent to the planet below. Spock, those power readings you took, are they
powerful enough to destroy a starship?
Where's another one? We gotta get out of here. You know what they're capable of. Only you.
Landru, he comes. I am Landru. For the good of the body, you must die.
Written by Boris Solberman. Not very long writing career, this man.
Shows.
Yes. A Man From and a Couple of Girl From Uncles. The original story outline was by Gene Roddenberry, and it was one of the potential pilots. I bet his version had a rather more raunchy festival than we get on screen here. Directed by Joseph Pevney, 2nd of 14, previously done Arena. And over to you, Bean.
So, 2 people are running. One of them is Sulu.
Yes, and the other one is O'Neill, his first of 2 appearances. He's played by Sean Morgan, who played another crew member in Balance of Terror, and will play a 3rd different crew person in Season 2's The Ultimate Computer. Perhaps he's one of triplets.
But they're running out of time because the monks are coming with lead pipes, and they zap Sulu just before he beams up, and he's all weird and keeps talking about paradise.
Yes. I mean, it's a nice that we have a cold open featuring Sulu.
Yes, yeah, that's that.
I think the only time we'll get to see this, so make the most of it.
Yeah, and it's good, and it's a good teaser because you know he's weird, but you don't know why.
Yes, interestingly, there's no need to tie him to a wall and subject him to whatever that machine did. In this case, the pipe does it, but yes.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's your teaser. And then the captain's log is a little bit of a recap, in case you missed the teaser for some reason.
Yes, weird.
And Sulu's condition that means that Kirk and additional party are beaming down. Basically, they don't know what's wrong with him. They don't know how to fix him, so they've got to go back to the planet to work it all out.
You know, they've learnt their lesson. They're actually dressing in the clothes of the place now, which is sensible.
And Spock is covering his ears.
Yeah, I like Spock's hood. Spock in the hood.
And Spock describes the expressions of the people there as vacant contentment.
We get Mr. Leslie with the landing party, who's one of the regulars, along with sociologist Lindstrom. Sociologist. Yes.
Sociologist.
Yes, I wanted to be a sociologist, but they wouldn't let me in because I couldn't pronounce it.
Right. So which one is the blonde dude?
That's sociologist Lindstrom.
Okay.
He's played by Christopher Held, who's a regular on Perry Mason and Falcon Crest. He gets quite a few lines in this and reacts proactively towards Tula. Originally, he would have fallen in love with her, but that got cut. What a shame. Nice backlot.
Yeah, typical Western, really.
Same one they used for Miri. Mm-hmm. And they get all the Beatons to move in time with one another by banging a drum on set.
Oh, fair enough.
All the dialogue has to be overdubbed for that reason.
Yeah, you could tell it was overdubbed, but not why. And then you get people sort of interacting and just like all joy to you, and you're here for the festival, and they just like pretend and go, yeah, it's like, do you want rooms? And but you've got to go because it's coming to Red Hour, which is 6:00 apparently, and Red Hour apparently involves screaming, fighting, looting, and sex.
Yes. So it's Bylar they're talking to, who's played by Ralph Maurer.
I recognised him.
Well, he'll return in Season 2's Pattern of Force as a Nazi. He's in Firefox. And he's an Imperial Guard in the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Wow.
Yeah, that's sweet for your CV. I think it's the makeup, but he's pretty freaky looking, isn't he?
He is.
I mean, all of them out in the streets are made to look pale and weird. So
yeah. But I did recognise him in particular, possibly from the Season 2 episode, because when we did our original watch through of all the original series, we had a big gap between Series 1 and 2. So I'm going to be remembering Season 2 and 3 much more than I am Season 1.
Possibly, although, of course, by the time we get around to Season 2, more time will have passed, so... Because we'll have covered a couple of other series in between.
This is true. But I did definitely recognise him, and it wouldn't surprise me if it was the other Star Trek, because I've not seen Firefox that many times.
No.
Anyway, they're being pursued, and they use phasers on stun, and people fall, but the body, which is clearly the people, they're behaving zombie-like, with like weapons and that, cornering them. So they bundle themselves into this building where they meet these three guys, one of whom is clearly a Grass.
Yeah, okay, so the Grass is Haycom, who's played by Morgan Farley, who will return in Season 2's The Omega Glory, and he's in Soylent Green, literally, presumably, knowing that film. The main character is Rhaegar, played by Harry Towns.
I think I recognised him, but I'm not sure where from.
We saw him recently in Buck Rogers.
Oh, that's probably why.
As the titular guardian, although he was under a hell of a fake beard in that one. Also was in The Littlest Hobo.
There's a voice that keeps on calling me down the road. That's where I'll always be. Every stop I make a new friend.
And BJ Count 1. Hurrah!
Hey there, where you going? Not exactly knowing. Who says you have to call just one place? Oh, he's going everywhere. DJ McKay and his best friend there.
You know, not yesterday, the day before that, I spent the entire fucking day earworm with that bloody tune.
Excellent.
No, not excellent at all.
And the third rather short-lived chap is Tamar, played by John Lormer, who's one of the illusionary colonists in the cage. Mm-hmm. And will return in Season 3's For the World is Hollow. Hello.
Anyway, Grass Guy is talking a lot about the will.
Haycom.
Right, he's talking about the will of Landru. The Archons appear and zap a guy because the other guy snitched. And then it's like
Those aren't the Archons.
Are they not?
No.
They're the law what something.
Lawmasters or
something
lawgivers.
like-
Yes,
or
lawgivers, I think. Which, of course, is just a Judge Dredd thing to me. So
Yes, yeah. And so, anyway, sorry, the cops, monk cops, zap one guy.
Monk Cop. Hey, that's a TV series they should have made.
Yes.
Yes, I want to be a monk cop. By day, he says his prayers. By night, he fights crime.
Or is it the other way around? Because they get up in the middle of the night to say their prayers,
It
don't
could
they?
be. Wow, there you go. Either way, he's busy and he doesn't get a lot of sleep.
Yeah.
But Justice can't sleep.
I love that we've invented this series.
Monk Cop. This is going to star, that's the thing. It's got to be somebody cheesy and American.
Yeah, absolutely.
What, a guy from...
Burt Reynolds?
No, he'd be too expensive.
And too cool,
yeah,
okay.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but too expensive, certainly. Who was the guy in the motorbike thing?
Oh, Rex!
Rex Harrison.
No, it wasn't Rex Harrison, it was Rex something else. Was it Rex Smith?
Rex Smith is Monk Cop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or make it his dude, the guy in the chair, but it was from Street Hawk. What was his name?
I can't remember. It's been too long since I've seen Street Hawk now.
Oh, maybe we need to rewatch it.
Wow. Shall we move on?
Sorry, I will later on Google that and then you can say who the person is. But I kind of see it as somebody who's not really superhero-ish. Do you see what I mean? So I think whoever that guy was from Street Hawk is him. Anyway, I've totally lost the plot now.
So we have the lawgivers come in and they knock the guy, they kill a guy.
Yes, and that's right. And then they say, you attack the body, you will be absorbed. And then they say, Landru is gentle, you will come. And it's just like, oh, okay. Sorry. Fanar. And the thing is, in my notes, I seem to have decided that Landru is Welsh because I've spelt it with a double L all the way through.
Oh, there's Landru for your...
Except clearly it's Clandru.
Clandru?
Clandru?
I come from Llandudno, Wales.
Yes.
Sorry, Welsh. Sorry.
Sorry.
Lovely country, lovely language, and we're killing it. So
Yes,
move
sorry.
swiftly on.
Sorry. But I think I must have heard this in either my granddad or gran, both of whom were Welsh. I think I just heard Landru in their voice and their accent. They were from South Wales. And so, yes, I just...
Do you think it actually means something in Welsh?
What, Landru? I don't know.
Oh, we can find out, can't we?
One thing I do love about Welsh, though, their word for microwave.
Oh, yeah, piggity bong.
Yes. Brilliant.
It means land in Welsh.
Ah.
Hey, there you go. We thought it sounded Welsh. Yeah, there we are.
Right. Anyway, sorry. I just decided it was...
Landru, hope and glory. Yeah.
Oh dear, we're a bit broken, aren't we?
Slightly.
Yes. Anyway, they escape to this... Oh.
Castle?
Yes!
Yeah, it's a bit random, isn't it? You get no establishing shot, but certainly the inside looks like a castle, which doesn't match what we've seen so far. It's just like, what are we going to do now? We've just got this set here. Let's use that. Okay, fine.
It's a bit Crystal Maze, isn't it? We've gone
Yes.
from the Western zone
to the medieval zone. Yeah, you got it.
And so they're having a conversation, and it's like, there wasn't actually a mechanism in the holotube, so they're guessing whether the lawgivers, lawmakers, whatever it is they're called, they're guessing if they're androids. Because they couldn't cope with outright disobedience. When Kirk was like, no, they were just like, clearly you must have not understood, we'll try again. And you get, Landru will come. And it just, the way Landru will come was said reminded me of, now let's see if I can get the episode right. Hand of Fear, Eldred Must Live.
Oh, yes.
Eldred must live.
Eldrad must live. Who is Eldrad, Sarah?
Just the intonation, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, was... So, having found O'Neill as one of the people who was originally trying to zap them because he's now part of the body, they have this sort of bit of a dilemma of, are they going to try and sort of talk to him because they think he's normal, or are they going to believe the dude whose name you told me and I've forgotten?
Which dude?
The one who's immune.
Oh, Rhaegar.
Yeah. Are they going to believe him and trust him when he says, no, you can't let him wake up because he's one of them? Anyway, in the end, Kirk goes, no, give him a shot, send him to sleep. And it turns out there's a resistance movement. And Spock asks how they're organised, and there's 3 of them, one of whom is the dude who didn't last very long and got killed.
Tamar.
But he doesn't know who the other guy is. We meet him in your section, I think. Mm-hmm. And then there's a hologram, and a bloke appears and says he's Landru.
Who's played by Charles McCoy. I can never pronounce that surname.
Spell it. Macaulay.
Is it Macaulay? There we are. He'll return in season 2's Wolf in the Fold, where I'll cock up his surname, no doubt, again. He's also in Blackula as Dracula.
Wow.
So very briefly then at the start.
Yeah. And Spock has previously detected with his... He hasn't got a tricorder, so what is he using to detect? I didn't see a tricorder, I don't think, to say...
He must have had one, I think.
Because he detected with something, didn't he,
Yeah.
that there was this massive power source. Anyway, he's holding the Enterprise, and they know that he's pulled down other ships, and Landru goes on about how, there is no crime here, clearly except the festival. And he doesn't ever actually explain the festival.
Nope, that bit's completely random.
Yeah, it's never given any kind of explanation or anything. And then he zaps them with... And this happens not just in Star Trek, but in other sci-fi series as well, and I've never understood this. With a hypersonic beam, why do their ears not bleed? Surely if you're zapped with something that's like a really... Because they put their hands over their ears, it's a really painful sound, that's what's knocked them unconscious, I get all of that. Why are their ears not bleeding?
Well, because it hasn't pierced their eardrums, I mean, not necessarily, so...
But surely if the sound is that painful, isn't that what's happening?
No, because it's internal, isn't it? It's, effectively stunning your brain by overloading the
Because
signals
normally if
from your
something
ears.
is really, really loud, that's what happens. Your ears
No,
bleed.
this isn't loud, this is high-pitched.
So it's not quite the same effect?
No.
Oh, okay.
This is scrambling their brains.
Okay.
Temporarily, thankfully.
Yes.
Yeah, we always have a bit of stuff with the Enterprise, with Scott in command, which is rather nice.
Yes, briefly, because he can't do anything, can he? Because
they're being caught by some beams. And he's sitting very oddly in the captain's chair to hide the hand with the missing finger, you notice? So he's sort of leaning right across to use his other hand to use the control panel.
Which I didn't notice. Until he pointed it out to me, I didn't see it. And I don't know whether nowadays somebody with the same injury would feel able to...
Yeah, I don't think these days it would be an issue.
But it makes me feel sorry for him that he felt he had to hide it, to be honest.
Anyways, they've been knocked out by Landru, and we get an establishing shot of the Enterprise in orbit with a captain's log talking about it being under attack when it clearly isn't.
Yeah, I know. You don't see any attack, do you?
No. The away team wake in a large cell in the castle, minus their communicators and weapons. Spock suspects the lawgivers are controlled by computer, judging by their confused reaction to Kirk's refusal to obey earlier. McCoy enters, having been absorbed and sort of brainwashed and not recognising Kirk.
Very much like Sulu.
Yeah, and a nice performance by DeForest Kelly as well. He's all smiles. And lawgivers turn up to take Kirk to Landru, ready for his disobedience this time, threatening him with their sparkly sticks. Captain is tied to a wall like someone who's going to throw knives at him.
Yes, that's what it looked like to me. You expected him to spin, didn't you?
Yeah. And there's a rotating booth, which is rather cool.
Why?
Because it looks cool. Why not? Yeah, I have no idea why it needs to rotate. An older beaten enters called Marplon, who's played by Torrin Thatcher, who had a career stretching back to the 1920s. Ooh. And he sort of takes over from everybody else, gets them to leave, and that's your first inkling that maybe he's not a bad one. Lindstrom gets all impatient with Spock. That would normally be McCoy, but of course he's under the influence at the moment. Yeah. First officer is taken to the absorption room where Kirk has been seemingly converted. Marplon then releases Spock without having brainwashed him and explains Kirk is the same. He's part of the resistance. Back in the cell, Spock surmises the population have been turned into parts of a machine with Landru controlling them. When Kirk decides to follow form and overturn Landru, Spock quotes the Prime Directive, but Kirk points out it refers to a living, growing culture, so they're allowed to break the rules here, apparently.
Well, that's the sort of thing that I think is... You get this quite often with Star Trek captains. With Kirk, you get it. Not so much with Picard. Definitely with Sisko. It's the idea that they're looking for a loophole. So it's not necessarily the case that the Prime Directive is designed to not apply in this case. They're saying it doesn't. They're finding a loophole and using it as an excuse.
Somewhat, yes. Kirk is rather famous for breaking the Prime Directive.
Just a tad, yes.
Not to mention fusing computers, which of course he goes on to do.
Which reminded me very much actually of Patrick Troughton's Doctor Who, because he'd had a thing for doing that to an extent.
It's the first mention of the Prime Directive in the series as well.
Oh, right, rather than, what was it?
Directive number 1 or something like that.
Yeah, General
yes,
Order 1 or something, yeah.
Marplon and Rhaegar enter, but McCoy realises all is not well and calls for the lawgivers, one of whom Spock takes out with a punch rather than the usual neck pinch. Isn't that rather somewhat old-fashioned, Kirk says?
Yeah. But then maybe if he wasn't sure a neck pinch would work.
Scott reports they're still being hit by heat beams and will crash into the planet. Rhaegar tells them Landry brought peace from war, then wimps out when Kirk tells him to take him to their leader, and Spock does administer a neck pinch this time to shut him up. In the Hall of Audiences, where Kirk announces their presence as Archons. Now, the Archons were the Archon was the previous Federation ship that was brought down.
Ah.
Landry appears and pronounces that they must die as they refuse to be absorbed, along with all who've come into contact with them. They phaser a hole in a wall and reveal a computer. Yes, it's
really shonky chock-a-block computer.
Yes, it's not great looking, and yes, won't be our last computer in charge of a human society that Kirk then has to talk into blowing itself up. He points out Landry is harming the body without freedom and creativity. He leaves Lindstrom and a team to assist the Beatons to return to normality, but they clearly don't do a very good job of it, as we find out in Lower Decks.
Yep.
I can't believe you all started re-worshipping the dang computer.
Well, Landrew's very persuasive.
Consume the intruders! Obey Landrew!
Hey, don't make me paradox you into destroying yourself.
Spock admires Landry's programming. Kirk compliments his first officer by saying he'd make a good computer. And then the Vulcan points out that humanity has often wished for such a peaceful society, but Kirk replies they've been lucky to avoid it. Not the worst episode ender, but it's not great either, as we said. But yeah, the big hole in this story is the whole festival business.
Yeah, so what is that? That's never explained.
Why would Landry make people do that? Why is it just the young people? Yeah, doesn't make any sense at all.
No.
And clearly they just forgot about it and then just moved on with the rest of the plot.
Yeah.
It's not bad, despite these unanswered questions. It's good to see Sulu get the limelight for a bit.
Yeah.
And
it's good to see Scotty in command as well.
It is. And you can't criticise the resolution for being a trope, as this is the first time Kirk's talked a computer into blowing itself up, so it's not a trope yet.
Yes. Although, I don't know whether Troughton Who would have aired yet or not.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so...
But it wouldn't have gone to the States, so
okay.
I don't think people would have seen it. In fact, I think initially the States only got Colour Who.
Oh, okay, so they would have got this long after.
Yeah.
Okay. I struggled to engage with this initially. For me, it was a very slow start. Because for me, I cared about Sulu, and I didn't really give a shit about all these people in the Western. And for me, it was very slow to get going and understand anything, and a bit weird. But after a while, I was engaged. I think I just found the festival too weird, and I think that potentially they could have fleshed out some characters more, ditched the festival and made a better episode of it, really.
Yes. I suspect the festival was probably the original focus of Roddenberry's episode, you can imagine, can't you? Ooh, it's all about hedonism and stuff. And then the writer got hold of this and went, it's not interesting. Let's do this thing with a computer controlling a society and see how Kirk reacts.
Yeah.
So I suspect that's how it happened, but who can say? Who can say?
Because after a while, I was engaged with it.
Yeah, it certainly gets better once the festival's over, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's it. And we've heard from Boss. He writes, does anyone else think that Return of the Archons sounds like it should be a Doctor Who episode? Yes, very much like Autons, isn't it?
A little bit.
Yeah. There were other things that reminded me of Doctor Who in this one, particularly Face of Evil. Maybe the Who writers watched this first. As well as Who, I thought at times this episode had a feel of Hammer horror. Yeah, the castle would do that, wouldn't it? Particularly the madness in the streets and when they were cornered by the possessed townsfolk. I liked the scenes where they tried to understand what was going on and how they eventually worked out that Landry was a computer. I was glad he turned out to be a hologram rather than a superpowered being. I was less impressed with the ending that basically involved Kirk shouting at the computer, which, as all computer users know, never works. There was some good Spock and Kirk interaction though, and I didn't get bored throughout the episode. Couple of questions to finish. Are they reusing sets already? The exterior shots look like a Western set, while the interior is more of a medieval cellar, and I'm sure I've seen them before.
Certainly you've seen the external set that was in Miri. I don't think we've seen this castle set yet, but I have a suspicion we might do again. And who knows, it may well have been a standing set anyway at Disney Studios.
And then he asked, did Kirk sleep standing up?
It looked a bit like it, didn't it?
Yeah.
He sort of woke up that way.
Possibly. Thank you.
Cheers, boss. And we've heard from Doreen.
Hello. I have now watched Return of the Archons twice because I thought that I must have missed something. But I still feel like I've missed a lot of explanation. It's possible because I wasn't paying full attention to the episodes either time, and I'm not feeling at my best. But I really feel like they missed a lot of explanation, like why on earth did they have festival? So also, like, did they count any murders or crime or anything, like the Great Lord or whatever? Did he not count any crime that happened during festival when he said there was no crime? Or, well, he was a computer, so goodness knows. Also, I could not get past the scene after the festival when the daughter comes back and she's almost suffering from PTSD or PTSD. I couldn't stop feeling like she'd been raped or something. Also, if that wasn't the case, if she was just overwrought, why was it the female that they had to show being overwrought? Why couldn't they show them all disappearing back into their houses in tears, or as soon as the festival ended, why didn't they all end up like her? Because that was the thing, I couldn't get past the feeling that the whole, they're young men, or they're of breeding age, so therefore these men that want to hide in our hotel or in our rooms have to be at festival. So I got the impression that people of the planet didn't have animal instincts or anything when it wasn't festival, and that's why they walked around like robot children and hadn't brains of their own. So festival seemed to be about animal urges and, well, breeding. So that's why the only way my brain would interpret the scene with the woman going back into her father's arms was as if she'd been gang raped or something. Probably not what I was supposed to get from it, but that's what I did, and that's why I think I can't seem to make any sense out of the episode. Possibly I'm overthinking it. Hopefully, between now and when you hear my feedback, I will have heard your explanation of the episode and I'll understand far better. Thank you for the podcast. Look forward to hearing it. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. You're not missing something. It is missing. There is not an explanation of festival.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are supposed to infer that rapey stuff was going on. It's very tamely portrayed, it has to be said. There's a shot of a guy who looks like he's just sort of breathing down a woman's neck, but I think it's supposed to be her kissing her. But yeah, I think the inference was that, yeah, she was recovering from a very horrible experience, and the sociologist is really, can't believe that the father let her daughter experience that, but apparently it's the rule of Landry. But ultimately, all that business just makes no sense in the context of the rest of the episode.
No, and the other thing was, I genuinely watching it wasn't sure whether we were seeing a trauma reaction, which is what your interpretation, but there was one woman who clearly was ripping off her clothing. And so she was instigating sex.
Yeah, I think...
And I wasn't sure, therefore, whether the daughter we see, it was remorse.
Yeah, I was going to say...
It could have been either.
It could have been either, because I think they were all losing their inhibitions, but then...
Then regretting it. So either way, if she done something that she then regretted, she would be upset, and the father should have protected her from that. Or... she was the victim of rape and the father should have protected her.
I mean, all they needed was a line to say from Landru, the festival exists in order to keep the population controlled the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Kind of like a pressure cooker release valve sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's their way of keeping them all robotised the rest of the time in all peace and calm. That would be, it would stand up, it would make sense. It's not particularly pleasant, but it would make sense.
Yeah, it would.
But we don't get that, so it just sticks out as a sore thumb, basically.
And it's annoying that it doesn't explain any of that. And to be honest, I would like some sort of explanation or something. Like, either, oh, she's okay now, she just felt remorse, or, Dad realised he's a cunt and should have taken responsibility and protected her, or something. I don't know. It's just, it's frustrating that you don't get the explanation. And for whichever reason it is, she is very upset as a result of her experiences.
Yours.
What did the Llama God make of this?
Lamagaslugs got the fixia, sheer fixioc. They praised paradise, so I blew up their computers a lot. Now, to coin a phrase, this is, shall we say, another classic, isn't it? Yes, another classic, as the Enterprise visits a planet that has somehow based their entire culture on a piece of classic Earth media. In this case, The Purge, that classic horror film. Yes, finally we're out of the shadow of the 1950s and Shakespearean classics and all that. No. But no, this is a proper classic story, isn't it? And probably the first one. I'm getting old, my memory's failing me, and I know we haven't read many of these, but there's been lots of space between them. But yes, it's the first one where Kirk actually talks a computer into committing suicide, which is something that's going to happen an awful lot. Well, is it? We've had various counts on previous podcasts. Shall we start talk the computer to death count, in which case the count stands at 1. But yes, aside from the fact that the Enterprise encounters a society that looks strangely like something that's easily available on the Paramount backlots of the 1960s, it is a classic Trek in that it poses a very important, interesting philosophical question, which is, if you find the people that are happy but they're not following your rules, do you try to make them happier by breaking their society and possibly making them unhappy, or do you not? And the answer isn't for me to give here, because that's not the point of a Star Trek episode. The point is to think for yourself a little bit, and it poses the question, and sure, Kirk puts across a certain point of view, which would be, I'm guessing, a very American policy of the 1960s point of view. But still, nevertheless, it does leave you wondering about it, doesn't it? Would those people have actually been happier? Is ignorance in some ways bliss? Certainly in this age where we know everything almost immediately in the constant stream of hell that is Twitter. Yeah, sometimes I wonder, maybe just a little bit of ignorance would be nice from time to time. But then you miss out on other things. So yeah, it's a question, isn't it? It's a very interesting question, and it's one that Star Trek poses quite well here. And this is what Star Trek does when it's at its best, which it is also doing here, because as well as posing this question, it's a really entertaining episode as well. There's a fair bit of action, there's some good character stuff, and it just zips along nicely. In fact, when they got to the climax and destroyed the computer, I didn't realise how much time had passed. A sharp contrast to the last two episodes, so a good one here. And whilst it felt like it was getting dangerously close to classic Trek of them just flying off into the sunset with a really crap joke, it was nice that we learned that they didn't actually just walk away from destroying this society. They actually left a team behind to help, so that was something to see. So again, it's not just your typical foreign policy where one potentially superior country walks in, blasts another one to bits, and then walks away again without really helping. They're going to help, maybe. And I'm sure this is a policy that'll go right every time they try it. Let's just not talk about SETI Alpha 5, Anyway, it's also nice to see that they learned from last week's episode, because they beamed down to the planet in period costume. Yes, well done. They're not walking around in Starfleet uniforms, otherwise the episode would have been over a lot quicker. And it's definitely one that's felt more expansive than the last couple of weeks. I know the alternative factor was set outside, but still, there's a lot of it on the ship. Here, I know they're just reusing stock sets that can be found on the Paramount backlot, but it just made it feel different and interesting. So, and there was an awful lot of extras. That must have cost a lot for them to hire for those street fight scenes, filming both at night and during the day. They pushed the boat on this one, so that was nice to see, though. And as well as having lots of extras, the guest cast this week were also really good. I particularly like the actor playing Rhaegar. He did very well in his role, I think, and there was just a lot of great character moments in this, really, especially to see the conflict between the people who want to be free of Landru, but at the same time are kind of too scared to go the whole way. Possibly the only thing that kept putting me out of the moments was the sight of all those people carrying long shafts, which occasionally emitted explosions from the end, constantly declaring, "You will come," but I'm an adult now, so I'm not going to snigger about those sorts of things too much. So definitely improvement for me on the last couple of weeks, and I very much enjoyed this one. So as ever, I'm looking forward to finding out how other people rated that compared to previous episodes. I hope everyone's having something of a summer break at the moment, and until next time, glory to you and your cast.
I think if the inference that I made about why the festival exists, or even if without the explanation why it exists, but ultimately, clearly the festival is not a good thing. We're getting people traumatised here. I think, therefore, that justifies Kirk acting in this particular instance. Because people are being harmed by it's quite an outside influence, because unfortunately Landry was originally from their species, wasn't he? But anyway, it's a difficult one, but I think this one's more passable than later instances where Kirk overturns societies that seem quite at peace and cool with one another, but just because it's a computer running it, he doesn't like that idea.
I don't know. I think the issue is, if they were all just happy zombies, you could argue that they shouldn't be zombies, but if they are genuinely content, it's not a problem. But if it takes people going around zapping people to enforce the happy zombiness, that already makes it a cause for concern. And the festival, which is never explained, would be justification if it were better explained, but I don't. I think what frustrates me in terms of Kirk making the computer blow itself up for reasons that don't make any sense, but anyway, when that happens...
Well, it's a logic thing, isn't it? He's persuaded the computer. The computer's all about bringing peace and harmony to society.
But he just shouts at the computer, "You are evil." He hasn't actually persuaded.
But he points out that he's evil because he's restricted the freedoms of the people and not allowed them to be creative, which goes against the nature of human beings. So therefore, is actually causing harm. So that the idea is that logic.
It's just, I think it annoys me that he doesn't ever challenge the computer about the bloody festivals, because that would be an easy.
Yeah, that would be an easy.
It?
It would be an easy win, wouldn't it? Yeah. Again, they could have brought, but again, that whole part of the episode is just forgotten later on.
Yeah, because that would be an easier way to justify everything, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh well, sorry.
And finally, we have heard from Drew and Tracy.
So we've just watched This is the Return of the Archons.
Yes, we did.
I felt I had to do it in that really kind of like booming stereo voice, because that's how they talked.
Yep.
And what do we think of that one then?
Yes, good stuff. I'd even go as far as say it's a classic. Well, it's a classic. It's not the best classic, but it's good. It's good.
Of course, it's not the best. Clearly on the Paramount lot,
yes.
Which we do like recognising. But let's just start at the beginning. So it opens with Sulu and O'Neill, who was clearly, if you'd seen him on the ship, would have been a red shirt, because he was like taters before he even got anywhere. And then this monk just points his big happy stick at Sulu.
Yes.
And Sulu finds his happy paradise.
He finds his happy place. Yep.
Yeah, but he was in paradise.
He was.
So that's a bloody good happy stick.
Yep.
Which we had one of those.
Mm-hmm.
So when Kirk and the team then beamed down.
Yep.
Did they have to put Spock in the fucking black schmuck thing? They literally could have just put him in a hat.
There was other people wearing hats, wasn't there?
Yeah.
They've invented hats in that society.
Exactly. And so all of them are wearing like these dapper little suits, and he's got like this big, almost high priest schmucky thing on.
Yeah.
Bit daft. What I liked about this, or found quite funny, was this was almost like an early Borg character.
Yeah,
the way that they were kind of like,
absorbing.
You will be absorbed.
Yeah, I can
whereas,
see them parallels.
Like, you know, obviously the Borg like to assimilate.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, they were very much about,
when he said your identity is going to be absorbed into,
and, you know,
to
and
the body
they
or
just
whatever.
don't recognise like individuality, do they?
Yeah.
So that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
And Kirk was in his happy place after being zapped, but then obviously
But
you know
it was
that
a trick.
It
It
was
a good job that bloke was there, otherwise they would have all been knackered, wouldn't
Yeah,
they? Giving them back the
exactly.
stuff and not absorbing them. Just saying it though, why was he putting them in the machine to absorb them when Sulu could get absorbed by just the staff?
And the other guy actually got killed by the staff. There must be two settings to this like happy rod, because
happy
with Sulu
and deaf.
Yeah, with Sulu they kind of just pointed it at him and he became all happy. But with the other guy, I can't think what his name was now. In the house.
Yeah, the old
They
guy.
literally blasted him, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
I just love all their peace be with you and joy and contentment. You know, we should all go around saying that all day,
Yes.
shouldn't we?
Yep.
World will be a happier place. And then Landru,
Yeah.
with his absorption, then goes from I'm going to absorb you to I'm going to obliterate you.
Yeah.
So where was the peace and love and happiness in that?
It realised that he couldn't do anything to absorb them or sort them out, so it's just like, okay, I'm going to have to get rid of you instead, wasn't it?
Didn't mean he had to obliterate everyone though.
Kirk and the computer. It's a good old Kirk talking to the computer. I will say, you know, he was very dismissive of the computer straight away. He sort of says, oh, it's just a computer. I mean, what's going to happen when Data's around later on? He's just like a computer robot, isn't he?
Yeah, but there's...
Kirk's dismissive of robotic computer life, isn't he?
Yeah, but all he knows at the minute is a computer that's on the Enterprise, which is not, it's not Data style, is it?
No.
And also, you've got to remember, they hadn't quite written
all
this yet, so you know you can't quite go there.
It is a bit silly the talking the computer to death, isn't it? Like the computer would obviously have some fail safes in it that you just can't talk it to death, wouldn't it? You would think.
You'd think, but
yes.
it's fucking stupid anyway. So what? They managed to blast through about 10 foot of concrete, and they find this computer. And why? As I said to you, it's got a fuck off alarm on the front of it, like a great big siren. Why wasn't that going off when it went into meltdown?
I don't know.
There was goods and bads to this. I didn't mind it.
Yeah, no, I think it's alright.
It was alright. You've
It's
got
a
to
classic.
stop saying it's a classic.
It is,
Of course it's a fucking classic. It's
Well,
yay
they're not
amount
all
of years
classics,
old.
but I think it's a little bit slow paced and not as good as other ones. But it's it's just a 10-ton classic of a TOS, isn't it? Kirk talking down the computers, all weirdy stuff going on. Paramount backlight. It's got all the good things about it.
I wish I'd set a counter on how many times I actually saw Spock raise his eyebrow on this one.
Yeah, he does do it a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, leave it there.
Okie dokie.
Take it easy, guys. See you later.
Bye.
Bye. It's a classic. It's not the best classic. Yeah.
Yeah, there are apparently degrees of classic.
Uh-huh.
So it's a lower par classic.
Oh, right.
Rather than your full on creme de la creme classic. Clearly.
Yes, okay. And Tracy's goes, I wish we had a happy stick to send us to paradise. Doesn't Drew have one?
Oh, let's not go there. And yes, I suppose Landru is a touch Borgish, wanting to, absorb everybody's individuality and stuff. But yes.
Yeah, I can see that. See that. In terms of foreshadowing Data, sort of, I guess, but...
Well, we never got a Kirk Data scene. That would have been interesting, wouldn't it?
It would have been, yes. And yes, you would have thought that there'd be some kind of fail-safe in the computer, really.
Yeah. But it was kind of a primitive computer that was put together by a relatively primitive society, so that kind of works.
Well, except it wasn't, because that light thing, they said it was far more superior. It's just the society had degenerated.
I can't remember what stage the degeneration had happened. The degeneration came later, didn't it? That was as a result of Landru, the computer, controlling them, wasn't it? But yeah. Anyway.
But it's a bit late now to introduce an eyebrow count, really.
Yes, good heavens. We'd be kept very busy with that. I'll stick with the BJ count, I think. Particularly in Star Trek, it's much lower and therefore less, full on.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you to everybody who's fed back.
Thank you.
I think Purry is lost in the wastes of Milton Keynes at the moment.
Oh, God, is he going round and roundabout?
Yes, he may yet escape, we shall see. Next time, recording the 21st of July, we shall be having A Taste of Armageddon. Yum, yum, yum. Tasty Armageddon. So pointy hats and a weird way of doing a war, basically.
Okay.
Yes. But some fantastic costumes.
Okay.
Yes, we look forward to that. Catch you then. Cheery bye.
Bye.
The opening music for this podcast was provided by the talented Drew Barker.
The artwork was created by Andy Pelastides.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
And we have a YouTube channel as well.
You can find the Borgcast playouts on Spotify for your listening pleasure.
Visit our Tumblr site at borgcast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Or you can contact us via Twitter on rev_org or borgcastammo. #Borgcast.
Shut it down!
day he prays, by night he crime fights. Monk Cop, bringing justice in the name of the Lord, because crime doesn't pray.